Vincent Kompany is the new manager at Burnley. But how is he going to do? This was announced yesterday and I was out and about. So this is my first chance to look at Kompany and Burnley. And it's a name that is somewhat of a Premier League legend. Kompany arrived at Manchester City during Sheikh Mansour's first giant spending spree after arriving at the Etihad. But when others came and went, Kompany was a good enough player to remain a key figure all the way through City's growth into the behemoth they have become today. 11 seasons, 4 Premier League titles, 2 FA Cups and 4 League Cups, and he left with a huge legacy as one of City's greatest captains. But we all know that being a great player certainly is no guarantee that you're going to be a great manager, although Kompany does come to Burnley with some experience, having worked the past few seasons at Anderlecht in Belgium. It's a bit of a peculiar story to begin with at the Belgian Giants Anderlecht, as Kompany was initially employed as an old school Kenny Dalglish style player manager. That did not go so well, and he quickly went to just playing. Anderlecht finished for them a lowly 8th, and presumably some sort of pre-arranged deal happened as Kompany retired as player and then took over exclusively as manager. Kompany's Anderlecht did improve from that sort of contextually low base of 8th place in that they reached the Belgian Pro League Championship playoffs, which are open to the top 4 teams in the regular season. But given their status in Belgium as the most decorated team and with 10 titles in the previous 20 years, that does kind of look like the bare minimum Anderlecht should be doing. At playoff level, Kompany does not have a good record when he's up against Belgium's best teams. 2 wins in 12 games across the 2 seasons in the end of season tournament. So in short, we have a big name, inexperienced manager at the nation's top team over in Belgium, taking them from what was their worst finish since 1937 back to what is probably merely considered the bare minimum in playoff qualification. But ultimately, Anderlecht expect to be first or second. Well, hopefully that's Kompany's past well and truly dealt with. We'll talk about Burnley in just a second. But in the meantime, do me a favour, hit that thumbs up button, like the video and support the channel. So, what is Kompany inheriting over at Burnley? Well, we normally make relegated teams with Premier League squads about to receive parachute payments as the hot promotion favourites in the Championship. And my take is that a merely competently run relegated team who avoids chaos should be viably challenging for promotion in some form or fashion. But there's an important few issues that Vincent Kompany has got to get past here at Burnley. The first being Sean Dyche and the shadow cast by the former Burnley manager at Turf Moor. Burnley had one top-level season in 36 years prior to Dyche arriving at the back end of 2012. Under Dyche, Burnley spent 7 out of his 9.5 seasons at the top level, with 2 of the other 2.5 seasons spent getting promoted from the Championship. This brings up 2 things. Firstly, the possibility that this past decade for Burnley could turn out to be a historical high, and they will now return back to where they spent much of the previous few decades. Who knows? The second is that when a club's success is tied so intrinsically to one single manager over a long period of time, like Ferguson, Wenger, Clough, Robson, etc., the following years can prove to be rather tricky. The other issue pertains to Burnley's ownership, and questions have been asked about the owners who took over in 2021 and the leverage buyout that they utilised to get the club. Similarities drawn to the method that the Glazers used to get Manchester United, but obviously the big difference there is Burnley don't quite have the size and commercial power that the Old Trafford club do in terms of their ability to carry debts and still bring in huge swathes of revenue. There's been a lot of talk also about a £65 million loan the club took out. And the wording of this says that a, quote, significant proportion of the loan is due to be repaid in the year following relegation should the club drop down, that being this year. What that means in reality will remain to be seen in terms of the actual specificity of a significant proportion, but it could well take out some of the advantages that those juicy parachute payments can give. In terms of the squad, centre-halves Tarkowski and me are off, and Burnley won't be getting a transfer fee for either of them. And you'd imagine, like most relegated clubs have to do, saleable assets, Cornet, Pope, McNeil, Weghorst, at least some of them are going to be cashed in on to balance up the books. Still, players like Jay Rodriguez, Mate Vidra, Josh Brownhill, Nathan Collins were all plucked from the Championship after starring there and should be amongst the top players if they can be retained on their return to the second tier. It's a tricky one to call this, and honestly I think it's going to be quite a tricky job for Kompany given where he is in his managerial career. If he'd absolutely killed it in Belgium, I'd be pretty sure that a promotion push is on the way. But with the evidence of his career in Belgium and those couple of little issues following Dyche and potentially quite a lot of restructuring going on at the club, I would suggest that in year one, if Kompany can get into that top six and be 3 potential games in the playoffs away from promotion, that would probably be a job well done. Look, he's obviously highly revered in the game and he will have contacts at certain clubs that might help, but the Championship cares not for anybody's reputation, and if you're not wide awake, ready to go and performing competently, this league will chew you up and spit you out in double quick time. Let me know how you see Vincent Kompany doing over at Burnley down there in the comments. It's been a fair bit of moving and shaking in terms of Championship managers recently, so if you want to catch up on a few more new hires, you can click here to find out my thoughts about QPR's new boss Michael Beale. And you can click here on Burnley's near neighbours Blackburn and their hiring of Jean Dahl Thomason.